Welcome to the GIMP tutorial part 3. This section will be on the correction and creation of column photos. So I have a standard kind of 4x3 photo here, which was taken once again by my camera, and want to look at what we can do to turn this into a pretty nice looking photo. One of the things we're going to focus on is correcting photos that have a backlight. A backlight is when the light is behind the subject, thus their faces are dark, like you see in these three gentlemen, wooden gentlemen might I add, in the boat on top of a restaurant in Seattle. So we're going to work with this photo and we're going to do some cool things and make it a really nice photo to include in a website. One of the new things that we're going to look at this time is a procedure called cloning. Cloning is a pretty simple process where we sample one portion of the photo and then we basically paint it over another section that needs something hidden. So if you look in my toolkit on the left, I believe the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one down, you see something that looks like a stamp. And if I put my cursor over it, it says the clone tool selectively copy from an image or pattern using a brush. So you want to click that so you can get your cloning tool working. I'm going to come back, I'm going to find an area of kind of similar content that I want to use to clone over the area that I don't want. Then I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm going to left click and you'll see up in the corner there that it'll sample that area. Then I go to the area I want to clone over, I left click, and you can see it's just going to pull right over that area. The next area I want to clone over is the bigger part of that branch. I'm going to have to change the area where I clone from. I want to get fairly close to it. So again, I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm going to left click. It'll target from that area. Now I can go up to the very top and start cloning that down. You see the target area kind of travels with me. And the neat thing is you can't even tell that this happened. I'm going to continue to clone on down here. Get rid of that area there. Oh, it's going back over the old area. So I'm going to just click the new area here. A little further down. Get rid of that area, go back up to here. There's one little thing there. And I head up to the top. I'll click an area close to that, click that one out. Then from here, I'll get really close to here and take another sample, and then I can just wipe out that branch there. I'm going to come over to the far right, essentially do the same thing. I'm going to click close here, hold it down, left click on the mouse, go over to the target area that I want to erase. And then one more time, I'm going to go a little close to the big branch. And I'm going to start back over here. I'm running into a little interference there, so I'll clone one more area down there. And then try to get it there. And it went away. Now the cool thing is you can do this in other places too. I'm going to click here. These little lights are kind of not a desirable thing to have in the program there. So I'm going to very, very carefully start to take them out. Sample an area a little bit closer there. This doesn't work quite as good as in Photoshop, but it's not doing too bad. I want to get a little bit closer to that there, to the top of the roof, and that'll get it pretty close to gone. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other one here. And voila, that's gone. I'm going to see if I can take out the top of this other one by the guy's head. It looks kind of silly coming out of the side of his head. And here I'm going to have to go to the navigator, and I'm going to have to get in close because I have some work here that I have to get fairly close with. So I'm going to just click the navigator, and now I've got it up to 133%. I can dial this in much quicker. And there's one more little thing off the top of his head that looks a little funny there, so I'll try to get that too like that so it won't be visible. Okay, one more thing, kind of go back up to this area in here. Doesn't look quite as good, so I'm going to click here and see if I can get an area that I can just come back and fill that in so it looks a little bit better. Now no one can tell that that was ever altered. A little bit over here also still I want to get a little bit in here, so I'm going to sample there, and then I'm going to come back and get that little piece right there. That's proving a little challenging. I think I would really need to set the edge of the brush. It looks like it's got a kind of a soft edge on it. But no one will ever see that. I'll go back to the regular size that I was working on, 67. And now I have a nice clean top of clouds all the way around the image. So now I've spent quite a bit of time getting the background to look perfect for this photo. What should I do next? That's right, I should save this file because I've got a lot of time invested in it and it's starting to look really good. But I don't want to just save it because I don't want to save over the raw file. So I want to make sure I use the Save As copy. So note at the very top of the Save Image box it says Name, Fisherman Boat, Raw. So I'm going to change that naming convention, and I'm going to get rid of that raw, and I'm going to make V1 for version 1, so I know this is my first attempt at altering it from the raw photo, and I'm going to then hit save. So now I've safely saved my original photo and I have the new version. So we've made a really nice background area now to frame our three little guys, but they're looking kind of old and weather worn and faded, so we want to see what we can do to make them look better and pop them out and make them more visible. So where do you think we should start? That's right, we should start with nothing else but levels. So levels, even if we don't use it and it doesn't help adjust anything, kind of looking at where what the histogram tells us, where the needed change areas are, then that can give us info when we use other tools. So now you can see, as opposed to the histogram, which was populated on the right 2/3 and had a long low level on the left, this one has things kind of spread out through different areas. Unfortunately, they don't have well, they do have a center one here. I'm going to just start with that and change that a little bit and see what happens. If I move it to the right, it darkens it. If I move it to the left, it's going to lighten it too much. It changes the clouds. So I'm going to just cancel that and start over one more time. We'll be a little bit quicker. And I'll start from the left this time. And you can see that darkens up the ground and the roof below. So that's not really a good change that we want to do. And we'll just try the right one too and see if there's anything helpful there. I got a feeling we're better just leaving it off alone, but let's try this. Again, they sure make little handles, and that's going to lighten everything up, I think, just a little too much. It's good to start in levels though, because sometimes you can get just a little bit, and I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go like just a couple there and get a little bit more light. I'll see if it's worth it by the preview. I'll click the preview on and off. So with the preview on, I see it a little bit lighter in the clouds. I think I'm just going to cancel and not use the levels at all in this particular photo. We've got a nice natural scene in that area, so let's keep that to start. So then the next thing that we're going to have to do, because it's a backlit photo, again we want to go to the colors and we want to start using the shadow highlight tool. Now, this is a little bit different for me, so bear with me a little bit. I'm going to move it over here on the left side where I can see it a little bit better. So now we have three areas. We have shadows, we have highlights, we have common areas. So we'll just work with these again. It's a lot of just a lot of trial and error with everything. I'll see what happens here when I start clicking the shadow color adjustment. So it says adjust this saturation of the shadows. So question is did that make any change? Click the preview at the bottom. Doesn't seem to have had really any impact at all, so I'm going to put that back to where it was at 100. So I spent quite a lot of time adjusting the different levels in here, the shadows, the highlights, the common, and frankly it's a disappointing tool versus the one that was used in Photoshop. With Photoshop I could get their faces very recognizable and it's not doing anything to adjust the face. Only two of these are helping here. I'll pull the shadows bar and you can look at that. Let me get it back on top of the other one. So I can adjust the shadows. If they go too far right, you can see how it's going to kind of pixelate the paint in the roof at the bottom. See how that? And that doesn't really look very good. It lightens the faces towards the end just a little bit, but not much at all. So we're better off keeping that back to where we have a natural roof color. Again, you can see that photo's not going to come out well. It's going to be kind of pixelated and weird. Look at the darker blue there on the top. It's got speckles and things in it. So I'm going to bring this back to the middle, and then I have kind of lighter than it had been and was, but I still have, you know, kind of a nice look to the roof there. So I'm going to leave that there. The other one that makes a little difference here is also the highlights. When I'll click that, and you can see that that's going to really affect the background behind the people. So too light doesn't look good at all. You lose a lot of interesting figure in that, and you get it pulled over a little bit more and more to the left, and then you get kind of a nice cloud shroud behind them to mask it, which is pretty good. Gonna go a little more, just a little bit too dark there. So I think maybe a little lighter right about there is perfect, I think. So the other ones down below haven't, you know, really done anything to really help it out. So I'm going to click OK and close this out. So the next two tools we're going to work with in the colors are going to be the brightness and contrast, and see if that can help out a little bit somewhere. Again, I'll pull this over to the left. So everything's at 0 and 0. So we'll give that higher. Again, usually as with brightness, it just washes out the photo. Going a little bit on the other side makes it darker, and this is a photo that doesn't need to be darker than it is. I can probably make it just a touch lighter like that, maybe 6, 7. Look at the preview, toggle that back and forth. So it does a nice little job making the boat and the roof just a little lighter without pixelating things. So I think I'm going to keep that at 7. And the contrast, let's see what happens when we play with that. Sometimes the sliders don't work quite as they should. So this one's one that's not quite working right either. So going to the left kind of darkens it, which is not a good idea. Going to the right gets a little more light in there. Again, let's preview it. I think I might have hit the edit these settings as levels, so I'm going to cancel and go back one more time here. Bring the brightness up just a touch. 7 worked really well. And contrast, let's see if that'll do anything for us. Not good that way. Makes it darker, not good that way. So we're going to leave this right at 0. And we're going to click OK. Last but not least, we're going to go to, once again, colors. And we're going to look at the saturation. I'm going to try the saturation without the hue change this time. It just looks like a standalone. And see how that works. For some reason I have something happening. So you can see saturation takes a lot of color out to the left side. The more I go to the right, the more color it puts in. But then I'm too far when I'm at 1.3 here to see how the sky and everything's starting to look blue. So I want to get kind of back to in here, go a little bit more. I'm going to close this out and try the other saturation too and see if that makes any difference. The hue saturation. So that seems to work a little bit better. I can live with some of that. If I pull it out, it gets less. So the question is, where do I want to stop? And I think 11 might do it. Just a little bit, but I can see in the roof that it might make it look a little fuzzy. So I think I'm just going to take this right back to where it was. Maybe 6.9. Let's look at that, see what that does. Not much. Gives us a little more darkness in the yellow, but not much. So I'm going to click OK and have to go and save our work. File, save, and then that one will be ready for sizing. A little bit later, we'll do that in the last part 4 coming up soon.